BORTLE here at this major regional right here. Over 450 players. My goodness, with top 8 consistent. Please introduce you up to the world.
Shellby McMullen.
Nice.
And I was playing Swordsoul today.
Swordsoul.
Yes,
overall
sir.
record, bro?
8-1.
Oh, 9 rounds of Swiss.
Yes, sir.
I beat you, man.
Lich Adventure. Both games they opened the preparation into Souls and had an imperm to stop my plays, so I can do anything about that.
It's all good. You topped the regional,
Yes,
man.
sir. My first one, and I'm hyped, man. Love this deck.
Nice. Any shoutouts before we begin?
Shoutouts on Candy Comics and Games in Rosenberg, Texas, located in the Greater Houston area. Shout out to all my friends who came with me today. They didn't do so great, but they were all really supportive. Shout out to my girlfriend for letting me come out every other weekend to practice with my locals out in Candy. And shout out to you, BORTLE.
Yes, sir. Without further ado, please show us the
All right, awesome. So I'm going to start off with the Tenyi engine. So I ran 3 Vessel for the Dragon Cycle. This is probably the most cracked card in the deck. If you have a hand of any Tenyi, this in an emergence, you lead with the emergence, they ash it, you summon any of the Tenyis, and then this gets you into full health combo if they ash that. Then I was running 3 Adharas, 1 Shathana, 3 Vishuddha, and 3 Ashuna. I opted not to play the Vessels, Heavenly Dragon Cycles, because I teched into Chalice, which I'll get to later, and the circle plays around hand traps, but the Chalice interacts better through boards. There were so many times where my opponent would pop my Monk, and then I would Chalice in response, and then go full Howl combo. So Chalice just had more interaction playing through boards. I'm not playing a going second version, but I'm very comfortable playing second with this deck, and so Chalice just allowed me to play through more boards rather than the circle, and circle could just be a brick. So these are all the Tenyi cards. So moving on, going on to the Swordsoul engine. 3 emergence, obviously it's the Rhoda, and the effect to search for any worm once you control a Synchro comes up sometimes. You can grab a Ashuna, Adhar, or Vishuddha if you have a token to bounce. The 1 Blackout, I am running Desires and I consider playing 2. I sided it out going second every game. And funny enough, I only resolved it once today. But regardless, it's still, you have to run it. It's a blowout when it does resolve. Then moving on to the monsters, 2 Swordsoul Tai. I know a lot of people are cutting this down to 1, but this Moyi is the plus engine, but this is the card that wins you most of your games, because this goes into Boxy Shuffle 2, and then this can send an Ashuna or Vishuddha to disrupt the board even more. This card, I'm going to say, won me like 70% of my games. Tai is the best boy. Then 3 in Long Yuan, the best extender of the deck. Opening any 2 Tenyis, any other Swordsoul card in him. Yeah, I don't think I didn't lose a single game when I opened any of those hands without hand traps too. I just pushed through every board. 3 Swordsoul Moyi. Other best girl, she keeps your advantage going. She's a searcher, but she's almost an extender, because you search for cards to discard for Long Yuan if you already have it. 3 Ecclesia. I know a lot of lists have been cutting her down to 2, but just the interaction of being able to special summon a Tai and go into a Boxia is just too important to me to cut the card. And I also side out at least 1 going second for other hand traps or floodgates. So I do cut out to 2, but this card was insane all day. Every single time I'd make the Tenyis, my opponent would disrupt it, they'd have more monsters than me, summon Ecclesia, special summon Tai, Boxia the board game. And then 1 Summit. A lot of people are cutting Summit 2. Funny enough, in my last round of the day, this completely won the game. My opponent banished my Tai. I activated Adhar's effect. So I discarded this, discarded Tai, and try to reborn it. My opponent DD crowed it. I use Adhar's effect to return it to my hand, and then normal summon the Tai anyways for Boxia. This is one of the best extenders in this deck, and later it goes with the combo that I'll show that's in the Escher deck for a tech card that I decided to run. Summon is cracked though, that's all I can say. Then moving on to the non-engine and hand traps, I played 3 Ash, 2 Imperms, 2 Veilers, 2 Nibirus, 2 Bells, and 3 Ogres. So before I was running 3 Nib, 3 Veiler, 3 Imperm. I'm playing a 50 card list. I cut this down to 2 because every single time I opened up 2, it lost me the game. These are both very solid, but Ghost Spell is too valuable with the interaction with Branded in Red. Because they typically send the Albion to set the Branded Red for your next turn, and they make Chimera, and if you just bell that, that's like half their pressure on your turn, just completely out the window. Ogre's cracked, Ash is cracked. And I also made the 2/2/2 choice to make space for the Summit, and then these 2 Chalice. So that's why the 2/2/2 ratios came into play, because these were, so I was playing 48. Shout out also to Sean Washington, who top 8'd the YCS and Charlotte's. This is basically a carbon copy of that list. I just added 3 more cards and changed the hand trap ratio. But it's basically almost 1-for-1 the list, and that was the basis for this deck. So shout out to him. But yeah, so the 2/2 ratios were for the Chalice and the Summit. Then some Broken One of, Pot of Desires. Funny enough, didn't get ashed all day. So probably needs to get hit if I'm being completely honest. 1 called by, I called by the Branded in Red 3 times today. Jeez. Yeah, so my turn, they tried to Branded Red, I asked them for target and then banished the target so Branded in Red couldn't resolve. And that goes in line with my 2 talents. I opted to do 1/2 because it's effectively 3 of an anti-hand trap card, and this was perfect because they kind of cover each other's weaknesses. This doesn't stop any effect. This just has you plus when your opponent hand traps you. But once again, Branded in Red, it's just called by just covers so much, and I've played talents at 3 and it's bricked, but this was perfect all day. The only effect I resolved with this today was take. And every single game it broke the board and just helped me OTK my opponent. So talents was super clutch. And then the 1 of brick is Despot 001. I got really lucky today and I only drew it once. Unlike like locals the past few weeks, I draw it like every other game, but he was good to me today, so I guess he's not that bad of a brick. And that is my 50 card main deck.
50 cards, that's amazing.
Any questions?
I guess if you want to present the rest of it, then I can ask.
Yeah, so I'll go into the extra deck. So I played 2 Monk of the Tenyi, 1 Christian Halka Fibrax, and 1 Auroradon. I mean, obviously, some people play 3 monks, and there was 1 game today where a 3rd would have come up, but it doesn't come up enough to justify the 3rd. How can Auroradon? Funny enough, my hands were so good today, this was the bait for most of my plays. I would summon my Tenyi's, link into monk, summon the Otter to go into this, they'd ash it, and then I would have full Swordsoul combo. So they'd ash this, and then I'd end on Chijal, Baron with like Blackout. So I only resolved this twice. But essentially what it baited was all I needed it to do. So I think this is perfect. 2 monks is the best ratio. How can Auroradon? Please don't ban How Konami. And then moving on to the Synchro monsters. 2 Chijia. You have to run 2. You make 1 on first or make 1 on second. If they ever hit this card, Swordsoul is going to be feeling a little rough because this is the deck that keeps all the wheels turning. The card that keeps all the wheels turning. And then 2 actual best card, Bhakti, Brightness of the Yang Zing. So the Yang Zings are one of my favorite decks. So the fact that I actually get to use the Yang Zing cards competitively just makes me insanely happy. This card is it only sends back 2, but for this deck, this is like access code on crack. You shuffle 2 back, usually do it Tai, sending a Moyi, and then you can pop a leftover monk, or you can set a card to summon the Moyi out of grave, reveal, and go into another level 8 synchro. This card was insane all day. You have to run 2. You make 1 going first and second. And then now we're down to the one-ofs. So this is my spicy tech for this event, Borload Savage Dragon. I was debating last night putting Dragite back in since I re-added the Summit, because if you have a pure Swordsoul hand of Moe, Tai, and Longyuan, the most cracked hand board you can usually make is a Chi-Jiao, a Baron, and a Dragite for a Monster Negate, an Omni Negate, and a Spell and Trap. But that's very specific. And then I realized there's a lot of value in another Omni Negate in this deck besides the Baron, and a mid-game Savage Dragon can just take a lot of games, especially if your opponent's top decking, they top deck a Branded Fusion, and you have this, you just negate the Fusion. This actually came up insanely clutch in one game. I went for the Hulk combo. I had Auroradon and Grave, my opponent Dragooned, and then I made this with Auroradon, making him 4,050 over the 4,000. So swung over Dragoon, and and then I had an Omni Negate, and I had the level 10 water Synchro I'm going to get to as well. I only made this once, but that's all I needed. The one time it came up, it got me the game. So I'm probably going to play with the slot a bit more, but currently this card did wonderful for me today. And then Yazi, Darkness of the Yang Zing. It's part of the Hulk combo. Auroradon pops it, summons Tai from deck. Going second to one game, I actually popped it to pop another card to get the effect. It's another board breaker along Boxia. The Yang Zing cards in this deck are some of the most broken. Like, this entire deck's broken, but this in particular, just the combos with Hulk and just going second, it's just super solid. Then Chao Feng, the last Yang Zing. You make this with Boxia and your opponent can activate light effects. Unfortunately, my opponent in round one misplayed. I had this up, he activated Branded Fusion and summoned Lubellion, who's a light. You can't activate light monster effects under the effect of Chao Feng. And that basically got me the game, because then I just OTK'd him from there. The only card I didn't make today, actually there's two, Herald of the Arclight. This comes up in testing, and also it's very good if you can make it against the branded decks, because they can't activate any of the fusions. They can't Verte you, they can't shut off fusion, they can't branded fusion because they can't send the materials to the graveyard. And it's another Omni Negate. It's come up in other testing, but today I didn't make it, but I would still keep it just for the fact it shuts off all the send from deck fusion cards right now. And you also can't get droplated while you have this. So it has two very powerful implications. And then Sinister Sovereign Longyuan. This card's cracked when you have your opponent at under 3,000 life points. So he has three effects. One, when you summon a worm, Synchro while he's on the field, you draw a card. The second, if your opponent special summons, you banish it and burn them for 12. And the third is you banish a spell and burn them for 12. I typically make this when my opponent is at, like I said, under 3,000, but today it never came up because I just OTK'd everybody before it came up. And then Baron de Fleur, this card's cracked. Unfortunately, it always got removed. Actually, no, never mind. It got removed a lot, but the one Omni Negate, it forces out a lot of plays. Absolutely absurd card. And the last card from our deck, and honestly the real MVP of today, is Swordsoul Supreme Sovereign. So it was game two. I could have made a Baron and Chi-Jiao, but I went for this instead because I had the Ogre. My opponent summoned the Adventure token, branded in red for the Aliber. So when they Alibered, I Chi-Jiao'd in response, negating the, and they had Griffin, sorry. They had the Griffin Rider. Targeting Aliber, they try to respond with Griffin, and his effect activates too. Ogre the Griffin, so can't resolve. Aliber's negated, and then he banished their Adventure token and one more card engraved, and then I just closed for game after that. It's super hard to play through, especially for branded. The only removal they really have is Mirror Jade, but you're typically never making this alone. You usually have this paired with like a Chi-Jiao or a Chalice or an Imperm. So you have a lot of disruption backed with this, and he has a destruction replacement effect, and he is probably the second best card that I made today. And that's it for my extra. And then finally moving on to my side deck. So I'm going to start with 3 Dark Ruler No More. It actually never came up today. One game I opened it. If it had been a Swordsoul or Worm Monster, I could have gotten game because I couldn't use this for anything. I don't have droplets, and Chalice kind of facilitates the same thing in this deck. This deck can't really afford the resources for droplets. So Chalice's spot removal was perfect all day. This is basically for based. They make like 3-4 Omni Negates. I make this, and if they don't have hand traps, I can break the board. I'm probably gonna mess around with this. If I get droplets, eventually I might change out for droplets. But just overall, I felt comfortable. I had it going into like Omni Negate boards. And then 3 Droll and Lockbird. This paired with Nib is one of the best combinations. I didn't resolve that today, but this was mainly for Flunderies, because the rest of my side deck doesn't really have any good cards against that matchup. But surprisingly enough, Swordsoul had a really good matchup against it all day. I didn't lose to, I played 2 Flunderies, didn't lose to either of them. This is mainly for that matchup, and also depending on certain hands with Adventurer, sometimes it'll shut down their turn, sometimes it'll be a flop. It's 50-50. But I feel like it's something you have to run right now, especially with the Adventure engine running around. You just have to like choke point some decks with one search sometimes. This was a last minute, one of the 2 last minute changes, and this card is correct. 3 Rivalry Warlord. I went first against a branded player. Set this, they made the Adventure token, which is Fairy, flipped it. Their entire extra deck is non-fairies. They couldn't play. So completely shut them out of the game. I'm super happy I made this change last minute. Another last minute change, I took out 2 Cosmics and a red reboot for 3 Evenlies. It came up huge in game 1. My opponent hit me, put me down to 12, ended battle phase evenly, everything but the Adventure token, and then OTK'd from there. And then last but certainly not least, Dimensional Barrier 3. So I played 1 mirror match today. Game 3, sided this in, drew 2. He went Summon Tenyi, flip, call Synchro, push, same thing second turn, Summon Tenyi, flip, call Synchro. And that was a wrap.
You pretty much explained everything, man. Beautiful explanation.
Thank you.
For those that want to stay away from the Brave engine.
Yes, absolutely. This deck has an exceptional matchup against the Brandon deck as long as you know how to interact with it correctly.
Nice. All right, sweet. Well, thanks again, man. Congrats.
Thank you so much, man.